Welcome back. So this is the fourth unit of this module. In this module, we're going to be looking at Windows applications development. So the whole idea is the whole C# you've learned, you can put it to use by creating not just console applications with dark screens, but Windows applications that have a GUI, or popularly known as GUI. And the first question is, what is a GUI? So a GUI, or called GUI, is a graphical user interface for a piece of software, meaning that it allows you to interact with your software without having that dark screen. You all use GUIs every day. All the mobile apps on your phones they present you with GUIs, graphical user interfaces. And if you want to search for stuff on the internet, when you get to the page, when you get to google.com, the page you find presents you with a GUI. And as automated as it looks, it's a composition of different controls. We call them controls. Different things have come together to give you this look and feel. So one of the things that is here, for example, is called a text box. So this place where the cursor is blinking, where you can type, is a text box, for example. Google that is appearing here is an image. All right. So there's an image box somewhere there, or picture box, where the image appears. The name of these controls may differ depending on the programming language. In Java or in C#, .NET Framework, the name differs, but the whole concept is the same. When you click search, this is called a command button, all right, or simply called a button in some languages. So this is a web application. However, web applications and Windows applications have GUI in common. The GUI meaning that they both present you with an interface where you can interact, where you can click, as opposed to just type with enter key all day long with your console applications. So there are many controls that are here, and I'm going to show you how you can design something that looks like this, however, in a Windows application context. So there are two command buttons here, or simply called buttons. These ones are called labels. Labels are places where you can write text. You can write this text on there. These ones are links, so you can call them link labels. You're going to see them much later. And if you come to the right top corner here, you click something, something pops down. Most times you call those pop-up panels, or sometimes you call them drop-down panels. There are list boxes, and there are many of such. And this is what we're going to be discussing in Unit 4. But first, let's look at what we have for Unit 4. So in Unit 4 is basically GUI applications. However, we're going to look at them, how we can use them with files. So how can we create a graphical user interface application in C# and store data in some file, so that when the application needs to use this data, then it can fetch it, and also it can remove, manipulate the files, and when you shut down the application, you relaunch it, you can still have access to the old files. So we'll start by quickly going through what is in this content. Then I will now show you how we're going to cruise through this, because it's going to be demo based. And when you're practicing, you just pause the video and do exactly the same, you get the same results. So a quick introduction, which I have actually covered most of that. And I'll tell you about a project that you will do this week in your groups. If you look at these videos alone, you can be able to complete it. But if you struggle, you can speak to your tutors in your groups. Then we look at other GUI operations that are possible, such as uploading videos and all of that. So introduction, I've pretty much explained to you what we're going to do is GUI applications. And there's a concept of event-driven programming. And what does that mean? Anytime you run a program from top to bottom, like we do with console applications, that's just a procedural program. So the paradigm, we call it procedural programming paradigm. What does that mean? It means our program always runs from top to bottom, and that's it. However, event-driven programming means you create an app that does nothing until you click something, or you interact, or you move a mouse around, or you type. So the interface takes different events that you carry out, and it programs those events so that it can give you feedback. Example is your Uber. You launch it, nothing is happening. Then you go to request. You click request trip, something happens. You click cancel, something happens. All those things you're doing are events, and that makes that whole IDE capable of event-driven programming. So in event-driven programming, the code is compartmentalized into different events on the interfaces that is controlled by your look and feel, by your text boxes, by your command buttons, and the things you do with the application. But we're going to see examples of that. So also we're going to list a few types of events. All right. Then there's this app project called To Do App. All of you create your apps. It's fantastic time. It's very fun. Please, by all means, create it, because this week you'll be asked to create a simple app in the labs. But this To Do app, that will be your practice app, you'll be able to enter a new task to your To Do, update the task. You're going to be able to delete a task and view all tasks. All right. So it's quite a simple application, but then it's quite straightforward. Then we're going to look at files, because if you want your app to be able to remember the content of the tasks the app needs to manipulate, the content needs to be stored somewhere. Next semester when we do Dev2A, we're going to discuss how we store those things in a database. But in the meantime, because we don't want to have too many things going on, we're going to stick to just Windows applications, and those data items are going to be stored in files. So, however, here I've put some notes for you regarding files. Please, by all means, just read through. And here's a screenshot of the app you'll be creating and how it should look like. Your app would have the same set of fields here. And I'm going to show you, these are controls. I'm going to show you examples of how to create them. If you click Save, it's saved. Click Edit. If you click View All, you should be able to go through each and every task and all of that. So the specification of this task will be well explained to you in later videos. So we are also going to look at other GUI operations. So like how do you add stuff to a list box? How do you load a picture to a picture box? I've shown you an example of picture box on Google just now. How do you manage an event like when the text changes? You remember when you're typing your password in any app and it tells you weak password, and you keep typing, it says medium strength, and you keep typing and it says strong password. It's because every time you type, whatever you've typed so far is evaluated by a piece of code that checks how strong the password is. So an example is displaying the number of characters that a user has typed. And we'll look at a simple example like that. And that'll be the end of this unit when we're done with all of those. So in Unit 5, which is the last unit, we look at things like serialization and all those concepts that are very interesting concepts. All right. That said, let's dive straight into it. I have made a list of things we're going to go through to help us navigate quickly. So first, introduction to GUI applications. I've told you what it's all about. We're going to look at C# Windows application. I'm going to launch one for you. And I'll show you controls and their properties, how to manage those. I'll show you design view versus code view, how you can design an interface and how you can code it at the back. And finally, we look at some controls like buttons, panels, text boxes, etc. Then we dive straight into designing some event-driven stuff, some events like click and double-clicking, and text change events. We look at other GUI applications that I showed you from the slides. Then we now go straight into simple applications. All right. Then we look at files. Then I will now give you these tasks to do for the week. And it would have been a fantastic week if we can do all of that. So I'm going to drive straight to my Visual Studio. This is my Visual Studio. It has launched. Because my type of application this time is different, so please pay good attention. Create a new project. That's what I'm going to click. However, here I have console. I have Windows Forms application. That's what I want. However, the language is same Visual Basic. That's not what I want. So I'll come here and I'll change language to C#. All right. Then that's Windows. I don't want console. I want a desktop application. So it's called Windows Forms application, or alternatively Windows Desktop application. So I click that. I'll see all of the options that are all desktop applications. I'll pick the not this one, Windows Forms application.NET Core. Let's see if there is just .NET Framework. Yes, this one. Windows Forms application.NET Framework. That is what we pick. All right. And it can show you that the language is C#. It's going the application you create is going to run only on Windows, not on anything like iOS. Yeah. So, and then desktop, it's going to be a desktop application. That's what we want. So we're going to go next. And in this case, I'm just going to call this application. I'm going to call it sample app. Let me just call it demo app. Demo app. All right. I can choose where to store it. Let's see. Let's store it here. Call it demo app, and I picked of course the latest version of .NET Framework, which 4.7.2. That looks fine. Then I'll click create. Now wait for it. My application is launched. It's on another screen, so I want to drag it here. Okay. This is the first thing you're going to see. All right. And this is called a web form. In fact, most of the application you use started the design like this. For example, your calculator app on your Windows, when you click calculator, this app that you see is also a form. It's a form. So as you can see, it looks like the same form we just launched now. Can you see? Except for the fact that there's nothing on this form, and on this other form, which is your calculator, your desktop calculator that comes with Windows, there's already buttons and functionality at the back of it. All right. So this is what we have. What do we do first? We want to see how controls and properties work. So what are controls? Controls can be found on your toolbox. And if you look around, if you cannot find a toolbox, you go to View. All right. Then you pick Toolbox. Toolbox. Can you see over there? And the moment you click it, I'm just going to drag this side panel to look like that, and I'll pin it. I can pin it down here. The moment you click that, you can see there are different kinds of controls. And again, I've explained to you controls are things like buttons and text boxes and all of that. If I go to all Windows Phone controls, I will see all of these controls. All right. And I will start with text box because it's the easiest to relate to. I'll click text box here. The moment I click it once, I can come here and immediately my cursor looks like I can draw something. So when I click and I hold down my mouse, I can actually draw a text box. Now, a text box is something like you use for your username and password in your applications, all right, where a user can type. The moment I've drawn that text box, I can then go and view a property window. All right, a property window allows me to customize this text box. You agree with me that most of the apps, sometimes the text is small, sometimes the text is large. It depends on how it's customized or the developer makes it happen. So in our case, again, we cannot see the property window yet. We can see only the toolbox. So I'll go again to View, and I'll go to Property Window. Property Window, as you can see, is towards the end here. I'll click it, and immediately it appears here. All right, I can collapse it, I can bring it back, and I can pin it down. All right. So the moment I come to the property window, anything you click at that time, the property of that thing appears on the left panel on that property window. Sometimes the property window can be on the right, on the left, or anywhere it appears. It doesn't matter. In fact, you can drag your property window out and fix it at the bottom. All right. You can also drag it out and put it on the left panel if you want. All right. And you can drag it out and put it on the top panel if you want. Every time when you drag it, Visual Studio is going to suggest to you where do you want to put it. But best practice, and most of the things you see commonly, it's always on the left. And if it appears too big like this, you just simply adjust it so that it looks like this. I have my form, my Windows form. This is a form, and I have a text box on it. I can choose to customize this text box. All of these are properties of the text box. Think of them like attributes in object orientation. So I can, for example, the font size, I can bump up the fonts to say 18. Immediately the text box is going to look bigger. All right. Then I can change the font, font color, back color. I can say back color. I can change it to something like, let's say that. And the back color looks pink. But you know that's not realistic. You wouldn't find applications with text boxes looking with a pink back color. So I'll go back to white to keep it simple. Then I can even change the text inside this box in design time. So the time we're having now is called design time because I'm attempting to design this form. So I can change the text inside to Sweet September. The moment I click enter, you can see Sweet September is appearing inside the box. If I want to keep it empty so that the user is the one that has to enter stuff in it, then I'm going to keep it empty like that. And right now you can run your application even though we've not written any piece of code. That's the exciting part. And if we run the application, we're going to find this text box on it. We can drag it to wherever we want in design time. At first, I'll save this. If I run it, we're going to find that Windows form, and that form we can type in that text box at that time. So here's Windows form. It's running. I can even minimize Visual Studio, but if I close Visual Studio, then it's going to close this form. Because right now this form is an application that is running. However, it is not independent of Visual Studio yet. If we publish this application to clients and people to use, then it becomes independent of Visual Studio. In the meantime, it depends on Visual Studio. If we close Visual Studio, it's going to close. So right now I can just minimize it and just enjoy dragging it around. All right. And I can also type inside it, as you can see. All right. So that's said, we're back here. So that's a text box, and you've seen the properties. All right. Let me show you another control. Let's say I want to create username and password. You know that interface always says username, password. Then you're going to need two text boxes. All right. I can even copy and paste the text boxes by pressing down Control and dragging it, or clicking copy and paste. All right. Very simple. Then I can name the text boxes. It's important to name them. Go to the property window. You're going to find the name, text box 1. However, the nomenclature for naming text box is txt. So I'll call it username. It's just like you're naming a variable. However, in this case, because they are controls, you have to be able to remember if it's a command button or a text box or a label. So you have to name them appropriately, especially when you intend to program them much later. So I'll name this one. It's by default says text box 2. I'm going to name it txt. Txt. Okay. txt password. All right. That's the name of the second one. However, the user does not know the name I've given to it because the name is used on the back end to program it. The user needs to see something, and that is label. So I need a label. A label is a place where I can write. So I drag a label here. I can go to the font property of that label. Again, because it's looking small, I want to bump it up to something like maybe 14. So it looks big enough. I'll just put it right next to it. I'll drag another label here. And as you can see, the two labels are next to it. However, they are reading label 1, label 2. It doesn't help the user much. So I want to be able to let it read username and password. So I'll click the label. I'll come to property window, and I'll change the text property to username. All right. Username. As you can see, it changes. Excuse me. As you can see, it changes to username. All right. Then I'll change this guy to password. All right. Password. And as you can see, it's changed to password. Then I can adjust them to be, you know, in this part of application development, you need a good sense of what looks good. All right. And that's why you see me dragging things around to look like well aligned. And if these are the only two things that are going to be on this web form, or on this Windows form, it's nice to put them in the center. So now, any one of you guys that is good in graphics, it's a good place to exercise your graphics strength. And in the business, there are people that you call front-end developers because they have a better sense of what looks good and what the user is going to like. And there are back-end developers that are just busy with algorithms and functionalities of applications. But yeah, so that looks good. I may not name labels sometimes because when I don't intend to use them in code, then I don't have to name them. These labels right now, the name is called label 1 and this name is called label 2. However, what I need to do is to make a user see something on that is on the label, and that is the text property, and I've changed it and that looks good. So that looks fine. I can test my app again where I can type a username and a password and see how it looks. So I want to test it quickly. Give it a second, it's coming up. So, yes, so we have the application now showing username and password. If I put username, abejide@uj.nc.za, and password, if I'm getting to type my password, let's say, what else? I don't know, ice cream. Everybody likes ice cream. 1, 2, 3. But you can see that my password looks, it's coming out, it's plain. It doesn't help me because in every application you've used, you see passwords are maxed they have like dots, but the text is still the same. So to do this, there's a property of your text box that allow you to scramble the password. All right. So go back to design view. We click the text box and we go to a property called password char. All right. So here you can specify a character like star, meaning that anytime people are typing in this box, star should be appearing as opposed to actual thing. And that's one way to do it. I'll show you another way to scramble your password soon. So I'm going to run it again and show you a demo of how that works. Good. So we have this. I put AIM. Then if I type ice cream, you can see now it is scrambled. All right. Good. However, there's another way to do it. I can remove the password char, which is a password character, and I can go to text mode. There's a property called text mode. Let's see. Text. Okay, I think that comes with. All right, we figured it out. I think so. Use password char. Okay, I can say true to use password char. System password char. So in that case, it's not going to use star. It's going to use whatever my Windows uses as password char. Sometimes Windows use some round kind of icon. So let's see what that gives us. Okay, it's running, coming up. Good. Here we go. Again, I've edged it. That looks username, password, ice cream. You can see it's using the one that my Windows uses, which is the ... So if it's another Windows and uses another one, it's going to be dynamic. All right. And that's it. So we have a user interface now that has a label and a command button. All right. So let's go back to our to-do list. So we've seen 2 controls so far. We're going to see more controls. Don't worry. Design view. Now let's look at code view. How do we now write code for these things? All right. How do we write code for it? So before we write a piece of code, let me drop a command button. So you can click a button. Usually you have a button called login. All right. Usually that's what we call it. All right. Then I can also play around with the font of login to make it, let's say 14, so that it looks big enough. And if I want the color of my login button to be different, I'll go to back color and I'll change the color to, let's say, something that is not so weird. Great. All right. Now, I want to remind you that these properties, there are a lot of them. So you have to spend your time. A module is not even enough to show you every property of every control. However, a module is enough to show you a concept so that you can advance and develop that concept. All right. So this button is here. It's new. The name is still button 1 because I need to program this button. I'll change the name. The nomenclature for naming buttons is BTN. So BTN, I'll call it login because this is the actual name. And now I have TXT username, TXT password, BTN login. So what if I want to write a piece of code that checks if this username and this password is correct? Let's assume that the username is supposed to be ABGD AI and the password is supposed to be ice cream 123. So let's create this app such that when we click this login, it can check if those 2 things are correct. So I'll double click this. The moment you double click, so in design view, when you double click any item, you're going to get to a code view. So when I double click login, I can see that I'm in a code view. As you can see, Visual Studio manages the 2 for you, shows you this is form1.cs design. So you can go to design. Form1.cs, that's the code. All right. And if I want to see a big view, I can drag out my code view and make it big. All right. So I can scroll through. And my code view reminds me of my console application because it comes in the same design. The classes that are being imported that I'm using, the namespace, which is the name of my project in this case, and the form itself is always referred to as partial class. For now, don't worry about that. And this method, we did not write it. It initializes a form. It's called initialize component. Don't worry about that method. However, the method I just double-clicked now was the button. Anytime you double-click a control, it gives you a method. So remember we said it's event-driven. So what that means now is that this event, the event of clicking this button, has to be managed with a method. All right. So when I click this button, whatever I want to happen, whatever I want the user to be able to experience, here's the place I'm going to code it. So let's look at it. It's private because it's only available inside this form. If you have other forms, because you cannot click this button on other forms anyway, so it has to be private to these forms. It's void because it returns nothing. Then this is the name I give to my button. However, underscore click means it undo the click event. All right. And you can see sender, it's a parameter, and the list of arguments another parameter. These two parameters for now, you can ignore them. In some projects, you see how we can use them, especially in DEV2A when we dive deep into Windows web applications and all of that. So up here I can see more. I want to show you guys more about event code views, about types of events. So this is a click event, all right? Other events that you may see when you pick a particular data class, you can see if I pick, say, a form, for example, this is a form, I can have access to more events in the form, all right? We'll show you more about that. I'll show you more about that, all right? So for now, let's stick to what we're doing. We want to click this, and we want this guy to tell us if the username is Abejide AI and if the password is icecream123. So to get the username out, because username is a string, of course now I'm writing just in C#, and that you're used to, equals, I need to remember the name of that control on the interface, and the control is txt, username. I also need to remember the property I'm trying to extract. The property is text property. So what I've said now is that the text property of this control should be stored inside username. That's it. I'll do the same thing for password. Password. I use another variable that I want. Some people can say pwd equals txt password.text. Alright. Now that I have my username and password, I can just use my normal if statements to check. If username is excuse me about that, is equal to, this is how you check equality, we know the string we want to compare, Abejide AI, and password is equal to icecream123. All right. If that is the case, again, don't forget in C# you need parentheses to undo your conditional statements. If that is the case, I want to display something like login successful, something like that. So there's a message box object in C# dot show. I'll show a message box and I'm going to say login successful. All right, exclamation. Else, of course, there's always an else if something goes wrong. First, I need to close that if. All right, else, I need to now say, I can use another message box to say that things went wrong. All right. Let's say login error. Login error. All right. So this message box also has other parameters. Again, these are things you're going to explore yourself. It has a caption parameter. It has type of buttons and icons and all of that. But for now, this is simple because those are optional parameters. And then we have it. We have a piece of code that can only be driven by the event of a user clicking login, all right, on this interface. When you click out, you click this, all right, and that's it. So I'm going to run this piece. There we go. Okay, wait for it. All right. There we go. So if I say Abejide AI and I say ice cream, I think I had 1, 2, 3 to it. Can you see it tells me login successful? Now this is the message box does show. Okay, if I type another incorrect password, maybe I type 1, 2, 3, it tells me login error. So, and that's pretty much it. That's your first introduction right there. I don't want the video to be too long, so in the next video, I'm going to show you more about buttons, labels, panels, text boxes, and you've seen design view and all of that view. Then I'm going to show you more things that you can do in event-driven. Double click, click, text change, then we can count number of text. Then we can move to an example of these applications. Then we move to files, then we do our to-do list. See you on the other side. Boom.